Hey everyone. Hey,
Hi.
welcome. Good evening. We're so glad that you joined us this evening. I'm Paul here, my dad Edwin, and look who's here to greet you
There's
tonight.
Ethan.
Say hi, everybody. Say hi. Woo! So excited to have you. So hey, look. Looks like we have Ute, Andrea, Jennifer, Hillary, Monty, Millie, Karen. So good to see you all on here. Fantastic. Hey, we are so excited to have you. And like I told you last time, you might get to see a little surprise. This is our little man. His name is Ethan Emmanuel Paul Deisinger. So he's actually named after both of his grandfathers because my dad's middle name is Paul. Natasha's dad's middle name is Emmanuel. So he's got both of their middle names in there in his name. And he is just a little rock star of our. Smile at everyone. All right, so we are going to have a fantastic time this evening, and I'm just over Ethan to his mom so that he doesn't distract everyone. And
Especially us.
yeah, so here he goes. He's so much fun, and he's just right at the stage where he's so much more interactive, and love him to bits and pieces. So. As you can tell, but let's get started right away because we have a lot that we're going to be covering, and looks like Manfred says no sound and have no sound and pick. Someone type in there, or maybe I'll type in. Try refreshing your page. Looks like everyone else, can you hear us, see us, everything running smoothly? We just want to make sure everything is going well. How to go with your homework, with writing down your crop list. I will show you here. I told you we were going to do this with you, right? So let me share my screen here because I did this. We're using the Plug and Play Garden plan, right? And so I went ahead and put together, this is the same garden planning worksheet that we've got for you. If you haven't downloaded this yet, then really encourage you to do that. I'm going to let's see here. Where is my offers here? Okay, I'm going to put up a link here for you to go over to the Resource Center. And if you haven't downloaded the Plug and Play excuse me, you can get the Plug and Play Garden Plan there as well. But if you haven't downloaded the worksheet, you can do that there. And your homework from last night was to fill in your crop list like I have here. So I did it with you guys. I put in all of our crops that are in the Plug and Play Garden Plan. And you'll notice that I split some of them. So tomatoes, I put in cherry tomatoes and slicing tomatoes because there would be different varieties of those. I think I did that with one other crop in here as well. I specified slicing cucumbers, and let's see, where'd it go? Well, maybe I just did it with the tomatoes. I thought I did it with one of the other crops as well, but maybe it's just the tomatoes. Then I put in the variety that we wanted to grow and the source here where we're going to purchase it. So this is going to be super helpful when you actually make your seed order. It'll make it a lot faster and easier for you. This evening, we are going to be focusing on the when of your garden plan. So we're going to be talking about your garden calendar. And we're going to specifically talk about why a gardening calendar is so important and makes it so much easier for your whole garden plan altogether. But this is the big key for this evening is when. So that's what we're going to be talking about. First of all, before we do that, first, I want to give a huge welcome because I know more people are joining us right now, as we're just coming into the hour. So welcome, everyone. So glad that you're here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how to plan your gardening calendar. And the overview is we're going to do a training session. Then we're going to open it up for question and answers. And just like last night, you're going to have the opportunity as well. If you want to, you can raise your hand and request to speak. And there's a button on your screen that you can click. I think it's a little hand button. and you can raise your hand, and we can invite you on to come and speak with us and talk like we did last night as well. So keep that in mind. The other thing is just a quick reminder as you're typing in the chat. Hello to everyone. I love the chat is so lively. It's a lot of fun energy in the room here. But just a quick reminder that if you're asking questions in the chat, please make sure to mark them as a question. There's a little toggle there. You click it and you say, mark my chat as a question, and then it will stand out to us and we'll be able to make sure to get it. Otherwise, it can get lost in the chat, all right? Cynthia, yes. Oh, so sorry. We already showed Ethan. Maybe we can give you a little glimpse of him at the very end as well. He was just all smiles to see you guys. So, so sorry about that, Cynthia. It was just right at the very start there. Then he got handed off to his mom, but we might be able to pull him on again. All right. So let's see. Where are we at? So I just did the overview of what we're gonna do. And you guys ready to get started? Anything else to do before we jump in and get started? Oh, this is what it is. I forgot last night. Yeah. Remember, there was going to be a drawing for our winter gardening class. I was going to do it at the end. I forgot to do it last night. You guys caught me on that, and I am so sorry about that. So we're going to do that drawing here right this very moment, actually. And I'm just going to pull up the screen here. We had 51 of you stay on basically to the end last night. And so I'm just going to show you guys that this is 100% legit, okay? So I'm sharing my screen. This is Google Random Number Generator, and we're going to do this drawing for you guys right here. Here we go. So here's the screen. So I've got 51 in the max here. We're going to generate the number. Boom, 39. 39 is the winner. And we'll go find out who that is. So let's see here. Here we go. Nope, that's not what I wanted to share. I want to share this one. Analytics. All right, try not to take too much time here for you guys because we want to get straight into the thing here. Here we go. All right. What was the number? 39? Yeah. So the winner is Annie. Annie, you are the winner. And I hid your guys' emails so that there wouldn't be any, security issues. But Annie, we are going to send you your winter gardening class. So congratulations, everyone. Clap for Annie. She's the winner of our winter gardening class from last night. Fantastic. Awesome. Hopefully there wasn't multiple Annies so that you know who you are. But your email's on there, so we'll make sure and get it to the right person. All right. I think we're ready to jump in for tonight's session. What do you say, Dad?
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay. So I'm going to pull up our presentation here, and here we go. All right, here comes the presentation. Should come up on your screen in just a second. Here, your best garden ever, session number 2. How grow $1,000 worth of food in your small backyard. We're on session number 2. And guess what? We got another free giveaway for you guys at the end. So stick with us to the end. We're giving away this time our 14-day microgreens challenge. And hopefully I don't forget about it. So remind me when we get to the end. This is step-by-step instructional videos guiding you from seed to harvest for microgreens. All right. So it's complete with regular emails that keep you on track, telling you what to do each day. You can enjoy your first harvest in only 14 days. Plus, we have a bonus in there to turn your microgreens into an automatic food growing machine where they actually just water themselves. And so you literally just seed them and moisten them, keep them moist until they just germinate, and then you just leave them. And you can go on vacation. You can come back, and they'll still be growing there and you can harvest and pick them. You don't have to care for them at all. So no watering, nothing. So that's fantastic, and it's a free giveaway, so stick around to the end, and we'll pick the winner for that. Otherwise, we're going to move into our actual training, so time to silence your distractions, turn off your Facebook, let's get focused here because we want this to make the most impact for you in your garden planning process here. So silence those distractions. And the first thing that we want to talk about is what we call our perpetual harvest hack. This is really what is it's actually kind of a new thing for us ourselves even. What we call our perpetual harvest hack is what makes our garden plan super easy to create, implement, and follow in the garden. And it makes gardening extremely easy. So in the past, there was ways to plan your garden, and we used to do it, and it could get kind of overwhelming. You could either fill out a whole spreadsheet, like you were just telling me about the spreadsheet you used to use, right?
Yeah, I had a big spreadsheet with a column for each week of the year, and then a row for each variety, each crop that I wanted to grow.
Yeah, so can you imagine 52 columns for every week, and then you've got a row for each crop, and then you mark it into the spreadsheet when that crop is going to be growing, when to seed it, etc. And hey, that's totally doable. The only thing is it takes a lot of time. It can be a little overwhelming for a lot of people, and you got to figure it out. And we're going to share with you how you can figure out when to plan when to plant each of your crops in tonight's session. So keep your eyes on that. But we've put together an even more simple way to do it. And here's the thing. In a nutshell, gardening is full of decisions. And though they fall into kind of three different categories. It's the simple art of knowing what to do. That's kind of like your plan in your garden. How to do it, that's how you actually implement it in your garden. And make sure that you're doing it at the right time, or when to do it, the timing of your garden. And when these three aspects come together, that is the power of a perpetual harvest hack. When you have all three of those in one place, when you have a plan, you know exactly how to do it, and you know exactly when to do it without even having to think about it, then your garden just takes off to the next level. And you can, because your mind isn't cluttered with trying to figure out when is the right time. You're not trying to, it's not April and you're trying to figure out, should I be planting tomatoes? Should I not? What do I need to be doing this week? If you don't have a plan, if you don't have a checklist, then you're kind of running by the seat of your pants. But timing isn't the only thing. You need to know what to do and how to do it as well in the most efficient way possible. So just very briefly, I'm just going to take you through these three sections, and then we're going to be focusing tonight on the timing part of when to do it. But just very briefly, talking about what to do. This is your plan, and under this, you have the list of crops that you're going to be growing. So basically, what we did last night was talking about what to do, because that is your crop list. This is the what of your garden. We're going to grow lettuce. We're going to grow carrots. We're going to grow green beans, right? And also, the what includes your actions like seeding, transplanting, cultivating, watering, trellising, harvesting. It's just, these are actions that you are going to do. The what's that you're going to do in your garden, right? Another part of what to do is succession or leapfrog planting. It's a term that I coined, and we touched on it a little bit last night, but succession planting is where you really take your garden to the next level. It's a little bit more of an advanced level of gardening where you grow succession crops or leapfrog crops where, I'll actually explain it here. What is, you might wonder, what is leapfrog planting? It's basically where each time you harvest a crop from your garden, you have another crop that is ready to plant in its place, okay? So I'll give you a very simple example with lettuce. And actually, the easiest way to show you here is actually pull that up for you here. Now, I've got to figure out which one here it is so I share the right thing on my screen. Okay, so here on my screen is our gardening calendar, and we're going to show you more of this in a second, but I'm going to specifically pull up lettuce. So for example here, let's say I seed this planting of lettuce, and I seed it here in the end of February, and then it's going to be harvested the end of April. When I harvest that lettuce in my garden, I want another lettuce to be ready to be seeded right at that same time. So I'm going to jump to be transplanted. I'm sorry, to be transplanted at that same time. So I'm going to actually filter this for you real quick to just the seeding, harvesting, and transplanting. All right, so I seed my first lettuce here, I transplant it here, and then it starts harvesting on the 16th of April, right? Well, a leapfrog planting is when you plant a second planting of lettuce. Here it's at the end of March, and then it's ready to transplant at the end of the harvest of the first planting of lettuce. So when you harvest that first planting of lettuce, instead of direct seeding a seed in its place, you've got a transplant that's already ready when it's 2 to 3 weeks old, and you're just going to maximize your garden space because you've got crops that are just leapfrogging over each other in your garden. So that, in a nutshell, is what leapfrogging is, and we're going to show you how to do that. Actually, tomorrow, we're going to go into a little bit more depth with it and the real practicals, because it gets connected with it gets connected with where you're going to be planting in your garden. So
the space that you have to put it in.
Yeah, so tonight's session and tomorrow's session, the when of your garden, creating your planting calendar, and where you place it in your garden, both of them kind of blend together. And so we've got to cover one at a time.
They both blend together when you're actually making your plan.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've got to cover one at a time with you guys, and we encourage you to implement them one at a time here. But as you're implementing where to put things in your garden, your planting schedule may change a little bit just as we go along with it. The other thing here is, so we've got that example with lettuce, but leapfrog planting is not just one crop after another of the same crop, like for the example with lettuce, or radishes is another one where you can do like multiple crops of radishes, one after the other. Another example of leapfrog planting is peas with green beans. So peas are an early spring crop and green beans are a summer crop. And if you plan it right, you can be, at the end of your pea harvest, you can be seeding your green beans right into that same place when you harvest and take out your peas, right? So that's another example. All right, here's the thing. Leapfrog planting can be kind of complex, though. You've got to figure out when to plant your first crop, when to seed it, how long it will be, how long before it will be harvested, like how long until it's harvested, how long of a harvest window you can expect from it. Are you going to be harvesting it for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, all summer long? And then when to plant that second leapfrog crop so that it's ready to go into your garden when the first crop is harvested out of it, right? So you've got a lot of planning and timing going on here. Plus you got to figure out how long in the season the crop can be grown. If it's a cool weather crop, you know, how long in the spring into the summer can you be able to actually grow it? And then in the fall, how early into the summer can you grow it? And then you got to repeat that steps for each crop, right? Because they're all different. And so when it comes to actually implementing it in your garden and actually doing the work, it's really not that much more physical work, but you get a ton more produce out of your garden when you do leapfrog planting. The issue is that it can get kind of complicated and it's a little overwhelming, so we don't want to bog you down unless you're using our perpetual harvest hack. And that is the key to making leapfrog planting super, super simple, which is what we have incorporated into our gardening calendars. Again, this is one of the reasons why I really encourage you to go grab your free month of the gardening calendar so you can try it out for yourself and go along as we do it. And then the third section, which is what we're going to focus on tonight, is how to do it. No, I'm sorry. This is the second section, how to do it. The second section is really just, how the actual hows of gardening. How do you seed your starts? How do you transplant? How do you cultivate? How do you build healthy soil? How do you trellis your plants? How do you extend your season into the winter without breaking your pocketbook? Unfortunately, in our workshop here, we are focused mostly on your plan. So that is the what to do and the timing. We're not going into all of the hows. Okay, you're seeing us. Thanks, Vicki, for sharing it. Yeah, you're supposed to be seeing our slides, so I'm just going to pull them up here and let me know if you see them again. So we're focusing on the plan and the timing in this workshop. But how to do it is super important, and so we highly encourage you, when you get your calendar, there are videos connected with a calendar showing how to do it. There's instructions showing how to do it. Also, like I mentioned last night, we have a special sale on our home gardening course, 50% off, and the resource center, again, showing how to do it. So that's super important as well. And then the third little part here is when to do it, the timing, which is what we're focusing on tonight. The timing of when to seed succession plantings, when to transplant, when to do each of those tasks, when to harvest, putting it all in the calendar, and the ultimate gold, what would you call it? The ultimate gold standard is having a weekly checklist for your garden to be able to do that with your garden. So we're going to take our garden plan here and use it as an example for you. And show you how to create a planting schedule, right? And we're going to start out with the basics of how we used to do it, because if you want to do it that way, you can do it that way. And there are some crops that may not be inside our calendars, which you would want to still find out when to plant them. So we're going to show you how to do it using our plug-and-play garden plan as an example here. So the first thing that you need to do, and just gonna remove this offer and put it up again. In the resource center, let me just jump over to our resource center here and show you. I put some links in the resource center here. That we're gonna be using. So the first thing that you need to do when you're planning your garden, this is the Workshop Resource Center. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see resources from the different sessions. Session 1, presentation, and then here's session 2. And one of the first things that you need to do when you're planning the timing of your garden is it's pretty much going to be based on your frost dates, the timing for each crop that you grow, right? So we gave a couple links here to there. You can go to the Farmer's Almanac, or Dave's Garden also has a frost date calculator, and you're going to click that. It's going to open up that that website, and in that website there's a place where you can put in your zip code. So I'm going to put in our zip code, and you can use either Dave's garden, or I just gave you both because you may want to look at both. Your specific location may, the dates between them are sometimes a little bit different. But so for our location, what you're wanting to look at is your last spring frost date, okay? When you do a fall garden, you're going to be looking at your first fall frost date as well.
You're usually looking at the average.
Yes, so we're usually working with like an average last frost date. The Farmer's Almanac automatically calculates a frost date with a 30% probability. So that means that, by April 21, you only have a 30% probability of getting a frost, right? So if you use Dave's Garden here, then I'll just show you them real quick. So I'll put in my zip code here and hit go. And Dave's Garden does it a little bit different. They say each winter, on average, your risk of frost is October 11th to April 24. So Dave, at the very top, just gives you an average right there, okay? Then they give you your almost certainly will receive a frost from October 24 to April 6, and you're almost guaranteed not to get a frost from May 11 to September 28. So Dave's Garden kind of takes it to the next level, giving you these additional dates of guaranteed times. But we would base it off of the average time. So we're going off of April 24, or like with the Farmer's Almanac, April 21. You know, right in that ballpark is where we are looking at our specific frost dates. So you want to go over there and find your local frost date for your place, okay? Then the next step is back at our workshop under session 2 here. You're going to see another section under those frost dates called Finding Your Planting Dates. Okay, so Johnny's Seeds has a planting tools and calculators page, and it just has a whole bunch of tools and calculators. I gave you a link there to it so you can look at all of them. But we're going to look at specifically Johnny's spring planting calculator. Johnny's also has a fall planting calculator. We're going to look specifically at the spring planting calculator for this example, though. And here is what it looks like. You'll load it here, and right up at the top, they have a place to enter your spring frost-free date, all right, including the year. So there's a simple little drop down here, and we're going to put in April 21, okay? And then you hit enter. And what happens is down below, all these little numbers are going to change based on the date above. And then on the left side, they've got the crop, so you can find the crop that you want to grow. And then they've got the number of weeks to start seeds before the set out date. The main things that we would look at here is when to start inside. So there's a date range here that you want to start those seeds inside. This is for crops that you're going to transplant. And then the setting out date. This is the date that you would transplant them out in between in this window here, all right? So I'll show you an example. This is how we used to plant our garden, okay? We would take this, and I actually did this. In fact, if you go to, I saw a whole bunch of you got our plug and play garden plan, right? And so you've probably seen this page here. Here's our plug and play garden plan. And if you scroll down here is a whole bunch of calendars that I made for the plug and play garden plan. They only work for the spring. This is before we created our new click and drop gardening calendars. And this is how I made them, right? So I took my Google Calendar, and so you can do this in your Google Calendar, and I created an event for each of the plants that I wanted to grow. So here you can see them. It says, plant broccoli, plant parsley, plant Swiss chard. That means to seed them. Whoops. I'm scrolling with my fingers. And plant lettuce, plant tomatoes. Then down here, it's got transplant, cabbage, transplant, kale. In this calendar, I only put seeding and transplanting into my calendar. But I'll show you an example of how this works. So I'm going to take cabbage as an example. So with cabbage, you'll come over to Johnny's, and it says to seed cabbage anywhere between the 11th of February to the 24th of March. So then I went over to my calendar, and I put in cabbage here. It's actually put in to plant the 23rd of February. So that is like almost right in the middle of that planting window, right there. Then if you come back over to Johnny's here, you've got the cabbage on this line. So we're going to go over to the right, and the set out dates or transplanting dates is anywhere between the 24th of March to the 21st of April. So you go back over to your calendar, and I have transplanting cabbage here on the 22nd of March to the 27th of March. That week is where I was going to transplant my cabbage, which fits right in. See, the 24th of March, we're on the 22nd. We hit the 24th right there and go into the 27th. So that's an example of how you would do it, just step by step, one crop at a time. And am I going too fast for you? Is this making sense? Just let me know in the chat. We're wanting to give you simple tools that you can use, and this is an example of a simple one. So yeah, like I said, you would just take, okay, a little too fast for me. Okay. Okay, we've got a mix. I get it. You know, I want to try and balance it for all of you guys, and I also want to make sure that we're using our time the best here. So it was a little fast for some of you. Totally understand. I'll just review very briefly for those of you that was a little fast. The first step number 1, is to get your last frost date. So you're going to find your average frost dates. Then you're going to come to this spring planting calculator, and you put in your last spring frost date. And then it will come up with a list of each crop and tell you when to start inside and when to transplant out. Now, I don't want to get bogged down with this because there's a much simpler way when you use our calendars that we're going to show you. But this is the way that you would do it if you are going to do it from scratch, just one crop at a time. You would take that crop. So, you know, I would go over to my plug and play garden plan, and I would take the first crop and I would look it up. Let's say it's lettuce, and I would say, okay, I've got lettuce here. The best time for my area to plant lettuce is between the 18th of February to the 3rd of March. I would go over to my calendar, whether it's a physical calendar or a Google calendar, and I would pick a week in that time frame and say, this is when I'm going to seed that lettuce. Then I would go over to the right here, and it tells the dates to transplant that lettuce out, which is going to be a few weeks after you seeded it. And I would mark a week in there. This is the week that I'm going to transplant the lettuce. All right. All right. You guys are fantastic. The other good thing is that this is recorded, right? So for the next 24 hours, you're going to be able to come back and review this. If you want to review any of this information, you can come back and watch it again. Or you know, as long as this workshop is open, you can purchase the workshop recording so that you can own it for lifetime at a discount as well in the resource center there. Yeah, go ahead.
Jennifer's asking if this is my spreadsheet method. Yeah, we would use things like this to decide when our planting dates would be using the spreadsheet, but Paul's not actually using the spreadsheet here.
Yeah, so what I was using here was a Google Calendar instead of the spreadsheet. Yeah. You could map it all out in a spreadsheet as well. That's a whole nother ball game. You know, where you map it out, where you map out the actual timing for each thing, whether it's in a spreadsheet or in a calendar, that's totally up to you. But this is how you would do it manually.
This is where you would get your raw information from to put into a spreadsheet or a calendar.
Yep, exactly. All right. Now,
just explain about southern exposure too.
Okay, so southern exposure also has planting dates, and
they're particularly useful if you're in the southeast.
Yeah, if you're in the southeast, I put the link in here for their planting dates as well. So if your planting dates are similar to ours, they have a PDF list here of recommended planting dates for a whole bunch of different crops as well. And they just list it right there. So indoors between such and such a date, transplant out between such and such a date. So I'm going to be honest with you guys. Doing this is a tedious task. You know, it's taking each crop, and you're going to have to, you know, look up for your specific area, when should it be seeded, and usually they're going to give you a date range, and that date range may be several weeks, and you're just going to have to pick a week in there, and then you've got to pick a week that you're going to transplant them, right? So doing that for every single crop, it can take you a couple hours to put your garden plan together.
It could take you days.
Yeah.
It depends on
how big your garden plan is.
Yeah.
So what we did is we said, hey, you know, how can we make this so much easier for people so that so that you can happen in just minutes? How can we put all this information in one place so that you can create a planting calendar that is just you know, you can just do it in minutes? And so that is why we created our planting calendars. And so we're going to switch over from the old way. And by the way, I gave you some tools there with Johnny Seeds and the Southern Exposure. Those are some basic tools that you can use. If there's a crop that you want to grow that's not in those ones, remember Google is your friend as well. So you can Google, when in the spring should I plant XYZ? And then search for dates for your local location. All right, but let's switch over to talking about the new way to plan your calendar, which is using our click and drop gardening calendars. And I just want to emphasize here that if you get set up with the free month using our click and drop gardening calendars, you can literally plan your garden with our calendar, and then, you know, honestly, if you wanted to, you could, you know, you could just take that plan, download it, and then cancel the calendar, and you never paid anything for the calendar, but you were able to plan your garden with it. Now, there's some downsides to that, because then you wouldn't be able to adjust it during the year and play around with it, et cetera, et cetera. Plus, there's a whole bunch more information in with the calendar. But I just want to get, you know, as we go into showing you how to use the calendar, I just want to make that point that this is we're giving this as a gift to you, the 1 month free. It's completely no strings attached, so that even if you didn't want to continue with the calendar after the month, you can still use it as a tool to help you. Does that make sense? So let me pull up our gardening calendar, and we're going to show you how this works with the gardening calendar.
Andrea is asking where can she get the calendar?
Okay, if you're wondering where you can get the calendar is available in the Resource Center. So if you go to the Resource Center, we just posted the link a bit ago, and if you go to the Resource Center, there's a link in there to claim your free month of using it. Shauna says, do we get the calendar with the yearly membership fee? Yes, Shauna, you would be getting the calendar, and I will show you at end here. I'll show all of you guys at the end here how to get your calendar set up once you get it, just step by step how to do it, okay? But let's stick right now to showing you how to plan your garden with the calendar. So I've got the calendar here, and I also have my plug and play garden plan up next to me here as well. So I'm just going to use it. You can't see it, but I can see it here. So in my garden plan, I've got lettuce here. So in the calendar on the left-hand side, by the way, the calendar comes based on your last frost. So you will send us your zip code, and we'll send you a calendar based on your location. So the dates for your calendar is going to be based on your local location. Then on the left-hand side here, you'll see that there is a list of crops that you can grow, and actually multiple plantings of those crops, because we talked about succession planting earlier, right? So there's a whole list of crops that you can grow, and they are divided into spring and summer plantings and fall and winter plantings as well. So this is a complete year-round calendar for your local location. So I'm going to take my plug-and-play garden plan, and the first crop is lettuce. So I would come to my calendar here, and you can, I'm trying to get this thing to go away. Maybe it'll go away in a bit. All right, there we go. You can just scroll down and try and find lettuce, or there's a nice little filter location here where you can type it in, lettuce, and it will pop up. And then literally you can just take a planting of lettuce, click on it, and it drops it into your calendar with the tasks for that crop. So telling you exactly when to seed it, and we've added some extra tasks in here, when to prepare your bed so that you're ready, because remember, knowing when to do something, if your bed is prepared ahead of time, then you're going to be ahead of the game. When to transplant that crop.
We learned that because we would put in our calendars to seed it date and then to transplant it on X date. And we get to our transplant date and we say, oh no, I don't have a place to put it in.
And then we're having to prepare the bed, and then we're getting late for,
Yeah.
You know. I mean, bed preparation doesn't usually take too long to do, but it is, you know, a step in your garden process.
But if you're a busy person and you have a limited time in your garden, it does take time.
That's right.
You have to think about it and be prepared to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Then we put in some cultivation reminders for you and an expected harvest time for that lettuce. So with this first example, I'm just going to keep it very simple of dropping the crops into our garden. So we're not going to be talking, tomorrow we'll look more in depth into the succession planting and where you're going to plant the crops in the garden. But this evening, we're just going to be dropping one planting of each of your crops into your garden. And if you're new to gardening, we suggest starting out with just one planting. So I've got lettuce there. Then my next crop here is cabbage. So I'm going to type in cabbage. And this filter, you notice the lettuce disappeared. That's just because I'm filtering down to the cabbage. And I will go ahead and drop cabbage into my garden plan and tell me when to seed it. You'll notice when I backspace the filter, both come back. So I've got the lettuce and cabbage in my garden plan now.
Now, do you want to say something about why you're choosing the second plantings?
Good question. Yeah. So when we created the garden calendar, if you're going to be using it, we created it where usually the first planting of a crop, for example, the first planting of beets, the first planting of cabbage, we usually created that first planting with the idea in mind that you may need to use some protection, like in a hoop house or a quick hoop outside, some row cover. The idea is that you would be using just a little simple protection, not like a heated greenhouse or anything.
So in other words, we're kind of pushing the limits a little bit on the early side.
Yep.
On the first seeding.
On the first seeding.
Yeah.
On the flip side, in the fall, the last seeding, again, is pushing the envelope into the winter. And so that one, so if you don't have a hoop house, if you don't have a quick hoop, anything like that, then we'd encourage you to start out with the second plantings for each of the early spring crops. Start out with the second plantings, and then maybe don't do the last planting in the fall. All right. Yes. Okay. So coming back to the calendar here. Let's see. All right. So next one is broccoli. So I'm just going to do this quickly here. So I'm going to drop broccoli in, and kale, and chard. So literally, guys, this is how fast you could plan your garden. So let's put in squash, You guys are thinking. So there's a whole bunch of plantings for squash, right? So you can play around with succession plantings. I'm just going to put one in. Peppers. We're going to do first planting of peppers. It's a summer crop, so it's not as crucial when it comes to the we're not
the first and second planting.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter so much.
Cucumbers. I'll put that one in. Tomatoes. Gonna put that one in. We have both determinate varieties and indeterminate varieties in here. And you'll notice here with the tomatoes, there are different days to maturity, because when you order your seeds, your tomato is going to have days to maturity, and that affects when the harvest window for that crop is going to be. Most tomatoes are around the 70 days to maturity. There'll be some that are a little more, some a little less. There are a few very short day tomatoes which are more around 50 days or closer to 50 days, and then in that case you would put one of those plantings into your planting calendar.
So you look at the variety you have and see what its days to maturity is, and then you have to choose one of those two there.
So I'm going to put in potatoes. I'm just going to put in a mid potato. Radishes. Carrots. All right, you guys get the picture. So I'm not going to go through all the rest of them. It wouldn't take me very long, but you can see, you get the picture. And what ends up happening is it fills in your calendar like this. And here's the really, really cool, powerful thing, is that once your calendar is filled in like this, then each week of your whole season, of your entire year, you will have a checklist of exactly what to do during that week. And I can't even tell you the amount of clarity that will give you in your garden just right there, having that checklist. So I'll give you an example here. If I go forward, let me just jump to April 19 here. And if I go over to this list section of the calendar, it will pull up the list for that week. And I can, in fact, I can print it out. I can take this and click print, and it will pull up that list. If you don't want this sidebar, you can click no on the sidebar and refresh it, and you can print out that list. So for every week of your gardening year, you can print out your little checklist, and you'll know exactly what you should be doing that week in your garden, right? And that just gives, like I said, a huge amount of clarity when it comes to your gardening season. The other thing that we included in the calendars here, like I showed you last time, if you click on one, it will pop up, and if you click on the seeding task, it will pop up. It'll give you some of our favorite varieties, so you can quickly order them. And then also with every single task, we share a little section on what to do and how to do it, how to actually perform that task. So with this seeding one, we tell you how to mix our potting mix together and seed those, plus links over to videos showing you exactly how to do it as well. So you have all of that right at your fingertips to be able to know exactly how to do each of the tasks in the gardening calendar. So I'll give you another example here is bed preparation. So you pull it up, it tells you what to do, how to do it, links actually over to some of our favorite tools and the visual demonstrations of how to do it in your garden as well.
So with this, you can be very green to gardening and yet have a fairly complex garden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right off.
Yeah. Because it just makes the planning process so much simpler and easier. And here's another thing that really is kind of cool as well, is as you are looking at your calendar, as you fill it in, it can look a little complex as you get all of these plantings put into your calendar, right? Because you've got so many happening at the same time. But if you come down to the left here, there's a filter, and at the bottom, you can filter it by the specific task. You say filter by subcalendar, and you can filter only the seeding tasks. So I'm going to click on that, and it just takes all of the other ones out, and now I see exactly when I should be seeding each of the crops that are on my list of things to grow. This is really powerful because you can know ahead of time what crops do I need to make sure that I have seeds for, that I get my seed orders in ahead of time so that my seeds are ready to go when I need to be seeding those crops, right? Does that make sense? The other thing is you can cancel that out, and you can sort by harvesting, and you can get a quick look at your year and a quick idea of when you can expect to be harvesting different crops in your year, right? So you can say, okay, in July, I can expect to be harvesting my Swiss chard, broccoli, potatoes, kale, cucumbers, and squash all together. And that's just kind of fun. The other thing is that you can plan your garden based off of the harvest time. So I'll show you an example of this. I'm just going to clear this calendar out to show you an example of this. Or actually, no, I'll just filter it down to tomatoes. Tomatoes. All right, so with the tomatoes, let's say I want to can some tomatoes, okay? And so I'm going to be growing some determinate tomatoes because I just want to harvest a quick batch of tomatoes and can them. So I may be looking at growing some tomatoes here, but so I dropped this planting into my calendar, but I realized that this tomato planting is going to be harvested in August, and my family is going on vacation in August. So I realized, okay, I need to use a different planting of tomatoes, and so maybe I'll do the earlier one so that they'll be harvested in July so that I can can my tomatoes in July, and I'll be free to go on vacation in August, right? So you can plan based off of the harvest time with the plantings that are in here. So let's see. All right. How are you guys doing? Is this making sense? Is this making sense? So what I would encourage you to do is let me just jump back to our presentation here. So what I would do for this garden plan, and actually this is the garden plan that we have been using this year, and so I literally did this with this garden plan. I went in and planned plantings for all of these in our gardening calendar there, and it just made an extreme difference in the ease of executing our garden, because every week I had that checklist. I could look ahead, I could have an idea of when I should be planting each of my different crops, and it made it so much simpler. So your homework for this evening, you guys ready for your homework for this evening? Because I don't want you just to look at us and our garden plans. You're going to need to do it for your location, okay? And so you've got the sample garden plan, you've got the plug and play garden plan, or you may be creating your own. But let's just say, for example, you've got the plug and play garden plan. You're going to want to put together a gardening calendar for your local location based off of that plug and play garden plan. So your homework is to plan your garden calendar this evening. To get in there, again, I'd highly encourage, I know I've said it many times now, but highly encourage you to grab your free month because, like I said, you can plan your whole season out during that free month. And drop those, so you'll go in and drop those crops into your gardening calendar, the crops that you want to grow. And and I would suggest for this evening, just drop in one planting of each of those crops. You could drop in one planting for the spring, and if you want to do a fall garden, you could drop in one planting for the fall of the fall crops as well. So just do one planting for this evening. Tomorrow, when we talk about where the actual mapping out of your garden, where you're going to grow each crop, and At that point, we'll talk about succession planting, and we'll go a little bit more in depth into try and make it really simple for you how you can set up succession or leapfrog plantings in your garden so you can have a continual harvest. I mean, we literally, over the summer months, we harvested something out of that garden plant literally like every week.
Yeah.
Except for weeks that we were traveling or something like that. But literally, we look at the record, and every single week, we were harvesting something basically. And then if you have any other crops that you want to grow that are not inside the gardening calendar, then look those up in the Johnny's planting calendar tool. And you can use that other method of finding out when you should be planting those. And I would encourage you just to mark those into some other calendar program like Google Calendar, or those you could put into a spreadsheet or something like that if they're not inside our gardening calendar already. But for everything that's inside our gardening calendar, I'd highly encourage you to use it and to plan out your whole season with it. And then you should be all set.
In setting this calendar up, we tried to go with the most common crops. And then the idea was we could add on other crops later as we go, but we wanted to start out with the common ones that most people grow.
Yep. I'm going to show you just very briefly what to do to get your gardening calendar if you don't have it. I know many of you are members, so excited for you guys. Many of you have already signed up for it, but you may not have set it up yet. Some of you may not have it yet at all. So I'm going to jump over. Once again, this is going to be in the Resource Center. So if you go to the Resource Center, I'll just pull it up on the screen here. And if you scroll down, you'll see on the left-hand side, it says click and drop gardening calendar, get a free month, okay? So you're gonna click on that, and it will take you over to another page here. And it says bonus access, get 1 month free. You can scroll down, there's a whole lot more information there. There are videos showing you step-by-step how to do some of what I was just showing you today. But you'll click on the get your free month, it'll take you down, and you can choose, there's two plans, there's a basic plan and an elite plan. It starts at either $10 a month or $15 a month, or you can sign up yearly and get a discount as well. Of course, like I said, your first month here is free just as a gift to you, and then you can cancel. You don't have to continue. Of course, we think that after starting to use it, you may want to continue, but then you'll just click the Get Started Now button, and it will take you over to where you can complete your order and get your calendar set up. Then once you have signed up here, it's going to send you an email with your link to log in. And you'll also get an email with a link to set up your gardening calendar. If you log in, up at the top of the page, you're going to see a link here that says calendars, and there's a link here that says set up your personal calendar. You want to click on set up your personal calendar, and it will load up a page here where you enter your zip code. So enter the membership email address that you signed up with, and enter your zip code, and then click submit. It will then send us a notification, and we'll set up your calendar for you. We try and do it as fast as possible, and you'll get another email with the link to start using your calendar for your location. If you have any trouble with all of that, feel free to shoot us an email, and we'll help you out and get you all set up. All right. All right, here. So let's see. I think that is the main that's the main section of our training for this evening, going over setting up your planting calendar and figuring out the timing in your garden. Let's go ahead and transition over into our question and answer time. What do you think, Dad?
Yeah.
I think we should
Yeah.
All right, so I see we got some questions coming in here, some particularly related to the calendar. So let's hit up on some of those right now. Olivine says, can we choose the date we want to start the gardening calendar? And Olivine, yes. So if you're talking about like your specific frost date for your location, you can send us your zip code, like you said, and we'll set it up based on your zip code. But sometimes we realize there's like microclimates, and some people's specific location is a little different than what was set up with the zip code. And so you can send us and say, can I have a calendar based on these dates? And we'll send you a custom one based on whichever dates that you want. So we're real flexible with that.
I'm not sure if she's meaning, can we choose the planting dates we want to start on?
Oh, you may.
Which, of course, you can choose that based on the different planting options we have available. Right?
Yeah. So with the calendar right now, this is our first beta release of the calendars this last year. Okay, and there are specific plantings that are built into the calendar, and unfortunately, at this point, you can't, as a user, actually move those plantings. We do give you multiple plantings, so you can choose what you want to use, but unfortunately, at this point, we can't move those. You can't move those plantings around. We do want to, in the future, build this from the ground up and make it where you can move them around for yourself and make it a lot more adjustable. But at this point, you'll just have to use what's in the calendar if you want to go with the calendar. Oh, she says, I meant as for when the subscription starts, since you have 1 month free. So the subscription starts from the time that from the time you set up, you'll get 1 month free from the time that you join, and then the subscription starts 1 month after that. If you need to adjust that a little bit, just shoot me an email, and we can be a little bit flexible. Like if you get paid on a certain date and you want to make sure that that money is in your account, and so you don't want the subscription to to pull from your account, before that date, just send us an email on that as well. All right. So all right, Perry has a question with the calendar here. Says, I set up my calendar, but when I closed it and then went back into the Members Center, it wanted me to redo it. What am I doing wrong? Terry, that's a good question. And there's two things that I'm wondering. One is, are you talking about when you reopened your calendar, like you planned your calendar out and then you closed it, then you opened it back up and it started over from scratch? Two things could have happened. One is, when we send you a link to set up your calendar, there's an initial link that you click on that sets up your calendar from scratch so that you're ready to plan it. Then after you get it set up, you'll get a specific link for your calendar, which is the link that you want to use to access it over and over. And your calendar is going to be saved on your local computer in your browser. Now, you do need cookies enabled. So this is the second thing that could have gone wrong, is if cookies are not enabled in your browser, then it won't save it save your plan for you. So you need to make sure those are enabled. The second thing is, don't use the initial setup link again, because if you set it up 2 times over, it's going to clear it out again and make it from scratch. So that might be what's happening for you. Let me know if either of those help. Otherwise, feel free to shoot me an email and we can troubleshoot it a little more for you. All right, Andrea says, I registered for the free month of the planting calendar but haven't received any login information. Where can I go for help? So if you have help, email me, paul@born2grow.net. Really, you can reply to any email that we've sent out, and it will come back to us and we can help you out. Great question. All right. All right, Jennifer says, so if it's May 1st, can I get a list of things to do for the day-week? Yeah, so we planned the calendar out, and this is what I encourage you do with your personal calendar is plan it out by the week. So say you're gonna seed a certain crop at this week, you're gonna transplant it over at this next week, and give yourself a week of leeway to get that task done, because I know that we're all busy and it's easy for things to get in the way, right?
And beyond that, the weather doesn't always cooperate. You're planning to transplant on a rain, and then it's a rainy day, and it's not the good time to transplant. So, you have to make some adjustments.
Yes. Yeah. So good question. All right, Terry says, how do I save the calendar? Set it up, played around with it, thought I'd saved it. How do we save it and we don't have to do this new every time? Okay, that's a good question. So let me show you. And there is instructions in the email as well. But here's what I'll show you. So once you have your calendar set up, you're going to have a specific link at the top here. This is the link to your calendar right there, okay? What you want to bookmark that link. So you want to save it. You can copy it. You can paste it somewhere else, in a note. You can bookmark it in your browser. Just this is the link that you want to save. This is the link that you're going to use, and it's unique to you for your calendar. That way, I'm just going to open up another tab, and I'll show you. So see, we've got this planned out a little ways here. If I take this and copy it, if I close this other tab down, it will automatically be saved in my browser. If I open this back up again, it's going to open up again with the plan exactly as it was. So your plan automatically gets saved in the browser that you are using it in. You just need to make sure that you go back to this same link to access it, and it will just automatically get saved there. All right. So let's see, got more questions here. Vicky, how does it anticipate harvest time since some mature differently? Very good question, Vicky. And we did it based off of days to maturity. And we did it based off of averages as well. So let me show you here. So I'm going to show you real quickly. There are some crops where most of the crops, their days to maturity all fall within a certain average. And it's fairly close, there's maybe a week or two off. But some crops have like shorter day crops and longer days to maturity crops. I think cabbage is basically an example of that. So what we ended up doing is we put in a 65-day cabbage and a 94-day cabbage. And you'll notice if we drop in a 94-day cabbage, it's a longer time until the harvest period. Now, I think we should make the disclaimer that these harvest periods are an average, that your cabbage may be ready to harvest a little bit earlier, it may be ready to harvest a little bit later based on its days to maturity, but you'll pick the one that closest matches the variety that you want to grow.
The other thing to keep in mind is that the weather can affect those harvest times.
Mm-hmm.
If you have unseasonably warm weather, it could speed up the time to harvest, and if you have unseasonably cool weather, it could slow it down. So there are things like that could take place. I don't think you're going to find the harvest window moving much more than a week, though, in either direction.
Yeah.
Depending on the weather.
Yeah.
It's still going to be in there close, and we also made those. We made most of our harvests. We give you a window that would most likely be a time period that you can be harvesting that crop before it's too old, but also catching the first ones. And you might not always have something to harvest within that window, and you may have something a little before the window or a little after the window. The harvest time is not an exact time, whereas the planting time can be very exact. And the further you get from the planting time, the least exact the dates will be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, next question here. Olivine says, does the calendar work for herbs? And we do have, so I'll show you here. Herbs, we have basil, cilantro, dill, and parsley in the calendar here. So those are built in. Those, if you're wanting to grow other herbs, then you'll want to look at planting those separately from the calendar at this point. But very good question with the herbs. Those are the main ones that are like annuals that you're going to plant each year. Many other herbs are perennials that you just plant once and keep in a specific location. All right, Judy says, your screen is blurred. Several others have the same problem. What can we do? We've already done a reconnect, no help. I'm so sorry, Judy, about that. It would normally be because of your internet connection. And unfortunately, there's not a way that I can specifically fix that for you. I'm very sorry about that. Good news is that we are recording this, so you can come back and watch the recording as well. All right, Jennifer, can we add crops that aren't already included? Very good question, Jennifer. Yes, so just completely honest, unfortunately, at this point right now, you don't have the option to add crops into it. It's just the system that the calendar is built on. Once again, in the future, as we get people using the calendar and as we get the funds to do it, we want to rebuild this calendar from the scratch up with much more flexibility, so that you can add in other crops, so that you can adjust them, move them around, etc. So this is our beta version for you guys. All right, Ute says, how do you feel about raised beds and then soil?
That's a good question. We don't grow on raised beds ourselves. And I'm assuming when you say a raised bed, you're talking about a bed that has wooden sides around it. And I personally, there's nothing technically wrong with that. It's just a different option, but I prefer not to have it, because I've noticed that when I'm working in raised beds that have a wooden frame around them, I just don't like the way my tools knock into the wood frame, when I don't want them to. It just seems like it's getting in the way to me. So I just prefer not to do it. But I have gardener friends, commercial farmer friends who grow on raised beds with the wooden frame around them, and that's just what they like, and so it's kind of your choice.
He said yes, it is with wooden sides. And then, Ute, are you talking about like the soil in raised beds or the soil period? Because soil is a very big topic. We believe in highly investing in the quality of your soil and really focusing on the microbiology of your soil, the life that's in your soil, making sure that your soil is extremely healthy. The healthier your soil is, the better it's going to be for your plants. And so, unfortunately, in this workshop, we don't have time to go into all of the in-depth, about building up the health of your soil. So if you really want to go more in depth into that, really encourage you to get the home gardening course, or if you join the if you join and grab one of the calendars, there's a whole bunch of training there as well that goes more into the soil and building up the health of your soil as well.
Yeah.
All right, Carrie says, I got the calendar last year. Are there any updates? Very good question, Carrie. It is about 1 year since we launched it. So, Carrie, excellent question. You know, this year has been one where we've been launching it out as a beta version for you guys, and we haven't specifically updated don't have any specific updates that have gone into it yet. We are gathering feedback from you guys, and I think Jennifer just asked, you know, can we request plants to be added? Yes, absolutely. You can send requests to us, and we can look at those. And in fact, we already have a list of plants that we'd like to add to it, and we would like to get updates in them as well. So very good question, Carrie. Vicky says, can you explain the different types of corn, SH2, SE, and synergistic? Good question.
And I don't feel prepared to.
Very good question. Yeah, very good questions, Vicky. I'll tell you, we'll be straight up and honest with you. Think that I know right off of the bat the types of corn that you are specifically talking about, the SH2, SE, synergistic corns. I mean,
there are different types of hybrid corns, I believe, based on, you know, there are different types of sweet corns.
Of the sweet hybrid corns.
Yeah.
So tell you what, Vicky, we'd be happy to look into that and get you a solid answer on that. Just send us an email, and we will follow up with that. So send us that same question by email, and we'll follow up with you and get you a good solid answer to that.
We got our primary experience in winter growing, and so I'm still learning some about the summer growing. I don't have as much experience in growing corn, for example.
Yeah. All right, Judy's got a question here. It says, I live in central Louisiana, and we have a huge problem with fire ants. Any ideas to help with this scourge?
Yeah. We have fire ants here too, unfortunately.
Very good question. I've heard of multiple different ways of people trying to deal with them. I know, Dad, you tried just like disturbing them over and over and over and over and over again, but that's kind of tedious.
Yeah, the best thing that I have used so far that really seemed to work was to use citronella to get or some sort of a citrus spray that you can spray on the colony, and that seemed to do them in. But I've tried a whole bunch of other things that haven't really been very effective at all.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you one thing that my cousin just told me, Jonathan, that he said works perfectly for fire ants, and that is what he did is he took some gasoline, he poured it on their mound, and he lit it, and he said it killed them all. So, so that's like the bomb-proof way of getting rid of your fire ants. Now, of course, if your fire ants are in the middle of your garden and you use gasoline, you want to make sure and take that soil out of your garden because you don't want to be pouring gasoline into your garden. But that's a way that it can work to get rid of them, apparently.
Yeah.
All right, Jennifer's got a question here. She says, my zip code covers multiple growing zones. Please tell me again how to get my calendar set up for my exact location. Very good question, Jennifer. So what you can do is, do you know your average last frost date. If you know your average last frost date, about when it is, then you can just email us and tell us that, and we'll set your calendar up based off of that. Otherwise, I would say, send us the zip code and we'll look it up and see what it is. And if you think that it's way off from where you are personally, we can definitely adjust it. We do need to figure out when your last frost date is for your local area. So if you don't know when your last frost date is, you could, again, go to like a farmer's market or go to, somewhere where there are some local farmers and ask them, and they should be able to tell you when your last frost date is. Micah says, does this calendar allow for growing all the way through the winter? Yes, absolutely, Micah, it does. We've set it up so that there are plantings that you can harvest them straight through the winter in most locations here in the United States. Very good question. Andrea says, is it normal for tomato plant to have black spots on it? I live in Atlanta, Georgia. Sorry, Andrea.
Are the black spots on the leaves or on the fruits?
Yep, that's just what Michelle asked too. The black spots on the leaves or on the fruits?
I mean, either way, it's not really normal, but it is common.
Michelle, let's see if yes, on the leaves, black spots on the leaves.
So the next question is, do the leaves start to turn gray or brown and die?
Yeah, are they dying with your black spots? Yeah. Think it'd be some type of blight or something?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
So probably the most common issue with tomatoes is a blight issue. You could get like a late blight in the summer, and your leaves will turn black or brown and shrivel up on the bottoms of your plants, and they'll start working their way up the plant. It says not dying, the leaves still stay kind of green, they just have black spots on them. So that's kind of interesting, yeah. I mean, it's not normal, it's not what your leaves should look like. What I would say is feel free to send us a picture of your leaves, because it's a little hard to diagnose without actually being able to see what's happening with your leaves. If your plants are otherwise looking really healthy, then it wouldn't, and if the black spots aren't just taking over your plants, then it might be something just to keep an eye on to see if it's getting worse over time. Otherwise, really focus on building up the health of that plant to make sure that it's got the nutrients that it needs.
Right.
All right. Good question. Olivine says, have you used diatomaceous earth on the fire ants?
Yes, I have. And I wondered why it didn't seem to work very well. And recently I was talking with my daughter, and she said she had read somewhere that diatomaceous earth doesn't work very well in the southeast because of the high humidity, which tends to make it clump together. And that makes a lot of sense to me. So, I think that diatomaceous earth does work if you don't have high humidity. But I have, fire ants tend to make trails where they're going back and forth. And I sprinkled diatomaceous earth right in their trail, and it didn't do anything to them. They didn't pick it up, or it didn't catch on them, and I think it was because it tended to clump together. So, I think it's worth a try, but just keep that in mind.
Yep. Yeah, I wouldn't I wouldn't bank on it working with the fire ants.
Well, especially if you live in an area that has high humidity. I think it does work for ants if you live in a dry area.
Yep. All right, Jennifer has a question here. Just as an aside, do you have training or ideas on different types of supports, trellises, etc.? Yes, absolutely, Jennifer, we do. We teach different ways to trellis. In fact, in our home gardening course, we teach multiple different ways to trellis. When you sign up for the calendar, depending on what level you sign up for, at the elite level, you'll see, actually both levels, there are multiple videos on how to trellis your plants. So you should be able to get some ideas there. Andrea says, I forgot your schedule. Will you be talking about soil nutrients tomorrow? Good question, Andrea. So today we were talking about when to plant your plants, figuring out the timing of it and putting it into a calendar. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about actually mapping your garden out visually, like where in your property, putting your beds in, where each plant is going to go inside your garden, and a little bit more in depth when it comes to succession planting or leapfrog planting, and doing that with you. So we're not actually going to go into soil nutrients in this particular workshop because we're really honing in and very specific on your garden plan and planning your garden. If you do want more in-depth training, then once again, grab one of the calendars and there's more training connected with them, or grab our home gardening course while it's at a discount here, and it goes into a lot more detail on soil nutrients and can help you with your soil. Yeah. All right. Michelle says, question, I have a perfect spot for a garden that's infested with yucca plants. Is there a way to eradicate these plants? At this point, I will nuke them if given the formula. Gasoline doesn't work for yucca plants. Good question, Michelle. That is something else. We don't have specific experience with yucca plants specifically.
I don't. I've never had to deal with them as a weed. The only thing that I can say is that there are some plants. We do have certain weeds in our garden that really the only way to get rid of them organically is to invest sweat. It just takes work. A spading fork is a really handy tool in getting out deep-rooted weeds. And you just put the fork in and loosen the earth, and you can get the weeds out a lot easier than just about any other method that I've tried. But it just takes commitment and time and effort to sometimes clear an area of some particular persistent weeds.
Yeah. Did you just cover using like a silage chart?
No, I didn't. That could be a potential solution. Yeah, you'd probably now a silage tarp is it's a heavier plastic tarp that's usually white on one side and black on the other. It is light proof. No light can get through it unless you punch a hole in it, and it will kill weeds by preventing them from having light. So what I would suggest with yucca and using a silage tarp is you want to cut off your yucca plant so you have a level piece of ground and they're not sticking up under the tarp. So cut off everything at ground level and then lay your tarp, well, cut it all off and then wait for a rain and then cover it with your tarp wet so that the plants will try to grow. That's your goal. Is
You want it to be moist under there.
You want it to be moist under. You might even run drip lines under there. You want it to be moist and warm so that the plants will want to grow, and then as they try to grow, they get no light, and they die. And they'll sometimes with to be honest, I don't know what the issue is with yucca, but I'm assuming it's got a root system that's hard to get out.
Yeah, it probably just keeps coming up.
Yeah, that's usually the problem with weeds. So, you can just wear it out, but you'll probably have to keep that tarp on for 3 months or more.
If it's a real invasive weed, you may have to leave it all season long.
Yeah, and if it has a really big taproot. I mean, we have what we call Johnson grass. It's like Bermuda grass on steroids. It has a big root, and it can be 2 or 3 feet deep, and it's very hard to eradicate. Have worn it out using a silage tarp, but it took 3 months. So, that's an option.
Yeah. Good question. I saw also in your other question, you wondered if watermelon is in the calendar, and yes, watermelon is in the calendars. So that's a plus for you there. All right. All right, let's see here. Looks like we have Judy who's asking to come in and talk with us. So Judy, I'm going to go ahead and accept your raised hand and see if you can come in and talk with us. We'll see what happens. Let's see if Judy comes in here. While Judy is making her way in, hopefully, looks like Jennifer's got a question here. She says, is the home gardening course material covered in the membership, or is it intended as a standalone for non-members? In other words, if I've been decided to join, will I have paid for the same material twice? Very good question. Okay, so here's the simple answer. The home gardening course is our flagship gardening course. It's got over 18 hours of training, step by step, through every stage of your garden. If you join at the elite membership level with the calendar, that's $15 a month or $120 a year, you'll get online access to this home gardening course. All right, so if you join at the elite level, you get access online to the home gardening course as long as you're a member with us. If you cancel, then you lose access to it. All right, so the home gardening course at 50% off in the resource center. You can get it, and if you purchase it, then obviously you have lifetime access to it, right? So you do get it as part of the membership. So you can go through it there. You can have the material there. If you want the option of having it for life, then you can purchase it as a flash drive, and you don't have to ever worry about losing access to it, if you decided to cancel the membership at some point. But yeah, that's kind of the simple answer. Does that make sense? Very good question. All right, let's see. Any other questions here? Jennifer says, please post the link to your brother's silage tarps that we mentioned yesterday. Absolutely. So let me get that for you all. And let me see. I actually have a... Whoa, his website's just gone crazy. Tell you what, I will send you that link. I will put that link in the resource center for you. How's that, Jennifer? I'll put that link in the resource center for you. So, all right, any other questions? Olivine says, can soil blocks be made on a small scale? Very good question. And yes, the answer is yes. Soil blocks can be made on a small scale. In fact, let me just pull up and show you. You can buy small soil blockers. There we go. Let me look it up, and so I can just. Here's a handheld one. So I'm just going to share my screen here and show you a small soil blocker that you can use on a home scale. So there's large soil blockers that you can use. Otherwise, you can get a small soil blocker like you can see right here. It's a handheld. Just makes 4 blocks at a time. Excellent for using on a home scale level for your garden.
Yeah, I feel like this is perfect for a small garden. There are bigger blockers that will do 12 to 20 blocks at once, and if you're a market gardener growing for market, it's worth it to invest in those. But for the home gardener, these work really nice.
Yeah. All right, got a couple more questions here. We're going to continue answering them, but I just want to put in real quick, if you have any questions specifically related to planning your gardening calendar, figuring out the start times of when you should be seeding plants, putting them into your calendar, etc., whether it's with our calendars or the other resources that we shared with you earlier. If something went over your head and you have a specific question about review, or you want us to review, just step by step how to do that, just put that in the chat, because we are happy to review that for you. I don't want to leave you here tonight without a clear knowledge of what to do, put together a gardening calendar, okay? So let me know if you have any questions on that. Otherwise, while we're waiting for that, Teresa says here, you said you use soil blocks. Can you explain why that is preferable to using than module trays for starting seeds?
Okay, there are a few reasons. The very first reason we like them over using trays is that we've actually tried side-by-side comparisons where we took the same soil mix and the same seeds and used them in both, and there was a visible difference in the size of the plants that were in the soil blocks versus in the starter tray. Some of the reasons for that might be that the blocks, because they're pretty much square blocks, you get more soil in them than you do in the trays, because the plug trays tend to be tapered, and so you don't get as much soil. Another reason might be that with the blocks, when the roots get to the outside edge of the block, they hit air and they prune themselves. In other words, when they hit air, they stop growing, and so the roots continue to just grow inside the soil in the block. Whereas in the plug trays, when the roots hit the side of the plug, they tend to wrap around in a circle. And so you get this kind of knot of roots just going around and around. I think those are the main reasons I can think of. For us, the bottom line was they do better.
Yeah.
At least they did for us.
The cool thing is that they're sitting there with all of their roots, and their roots, instead of winding around like Dad just said in the plug tray, as soon as you transplant it, those roots are all sticking out, ready to grow into the soil.
Yes.
And so it's just like a quick transition into the soil, really seamless, quick transition
Yeah.
into the soil.
Yeah.
Um,
The soil blocks might be a little more work, but we felt like it was worth it.
yeah. All right, Olivine said, why does silage tarp? Somehow I missed it. Maybe I fell asleep. All right, silage tarp is a tarp that is used to cover your ground. And
it's called silage tarp because farmers use it to make silage in it. But we're talking about using it for other things.
All right, so I'll share the screen here with you, the picture. This is my cousin's business here, Farmer's Friend. He sells it, and this black tarp right here is silage tarp. It's white on one side, black on the other, and you put it over your ground like this. You want your ground to be moist underneath, and it just kills everything that tries to grow underneath it because everything underneath doesn't get any light when it comes up. And I'll put a link in the silage tarp. Just put a link in the chat there of where you can go jump over to my cousin's website here, and it's just a quick little affiliate link. So so you know, if you end up purchasing some, you'll support us a little bit as well. But silage tarp is an excellent way to deal with weeds in the garden. All right, Marcia says, what do you suggest using to cover plants from early or late season frost? That's a really good question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. We like to use floating row cover. It's a spun bonded fabric, and Paul's cousin also sells that.
Yeah, I'll send you a link to that too.
Anyways, it's a spun bonded fabric. It comes in different weights. We like to use a weight that will allow about 70% light through it, and it not only can protect against frost, it also protects against wind damage. You know, one of the big issues in the wintertime is not just frost, but it's wind blowing on the leaves, and they desiccate because of this cold wind blowing on them. So it protects against that, and it also helps to hold moisture in the soil. But it's not moisture proof like plastic is. So you can leave your floating row covers on and let it rain on them, and moisture will go through, and so your plants get watered. So,
yeah.
And we'll usually set it up with hoops underneath. There's in the calendar under there's some lines for frost that give you an idea when your frost period is, and if you click on that, there's information on using floating row covers and how we like to do that.
Yep. All right. Michelle's got a question here. Says, watermelon. Sorry, I was late last night to the group. What can I do now to improve my soil for watermelon? Good question, Michelle. So there's multiple things that you can do. I don't know if your watermelon is growing right now. I don't know if you're like down in southern Florida or something. But one thing that you can do is you'll want to find a really good source of quality organic compost that you can add to your soil, just to really build up the organic matter in your soil. That will really help to improve your soil for it as well. If your soil, we do suggest getting a soil test for your garden, and we teach that in the membership as well as in the home gardening course, how to do a soil test. We suggest getting one through Grow Organic, Peaceful Valley in California, and then they give specific recommendations of organic ways to amend your soil and build up the nutrients in your soil. If you don't do that and you want to just give your plant a nutrient boost, then I would suggest getting a balanced mix that is natural nutrients for your plants, like down-to-earth vegans, like a balanced nutrient mix for plants. So I would take a look at that.
Another thing is that all cucurbits like silicone. they need silicone in their cell structure, and it's something that helps them. And so that's a nutrient that you don't hear much about, but it can be beneficial to your plants. So I'm trying to think of some sources. Diatomaceous earth is a source of silica. And then there's a product that you can give the plant as a foliar spray. It's potassium silicate, I believe. And I haven't used that. I've had it recommended to me, and I just bought some, but I haven't used it.
All right, so hopefully it gives you some ideas, some little tips to work off of here. So this looks like you said, first year I got end rot, last year they just didn't do very well. Yeah, so I would definitely focus on the soil for them. Make sure to get some good organic compost that's very well composted, and look into adding some nutrients to that soil as well for your plant, for sure. Judy says maybe silage tarp would kill fire ants too.
It might make them move at least.
Yeah, they'll probably just move. Yeah. But that's a good question. Michelle says, how far apart do my cukes have to be from cantaloupes so I don't get cucalopes? This is a contested question. Scientifically, you're not supposed to ever be able to get a cucalope because cucumbers and cantaloupes are in a different, I forget, it's like species, there's like the genera species genera family. I forget the level at which it is, but they're at two different levels there, and so they're not supposed to be able to cross pollinate. And even if they did, you're not supposed to get the cross that first year. The cross is supposed to happen the second year. But there's everyone that says experienced cucalopes, and they, they're just about square by it. So, oh man, I mean, we've grown them. We haven't worried about how far apart we grow them.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get a cucalope unless you save that seed. And, if you're buying your seed every year, then you're not going to get one.
So you just blame it on the seed company that sent you the seed and buy seed from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Go buy some seed from our company.
If you're saving your own seed, then, I need to go back and look. There are at least 4 different families of squashes that won't cross with each other, but within each family there are a number of different squash or pumpkins.
Michelle says, I've got the freak of nature cucumber. First year, no kidding. Hey, I understand. I hear so many people. I've had so many people tell me the same thing. So it happens. It does happen. I can't tell you that it's actually a cross, but I think it's your seed company that you're getting it from. I don't know.
But the other thing is that a lot of squash and cucumbers will keep growing, and you need to pick them. You don't wait for them to stop growing before you pick them. Cucumbers can get really big, and so can some squash.
Yeah.
You pick them at the size that you like to eat them.
Yeah. So Katie says, where can I find the link for tonight's webinar? I'll send it out by email shortly after our session ends this evening. So keep a lookout for that. Within half an hour or so, I should be able to get you that link to the replay for tonight. Terry says, if you're doing raised beds, do you still need to get a soil test? Always wondered this.
Yeah, I mean, there's about a raised bed that's going to, change the soil. What changes the soil is what you put into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would still get a soil test,
especially if you're using like topsoil in your raised bed, local topsoil. If you fill your entire raised bed with like a potting mix, then you're going to be adding. Then you'll need to add specific nutrients to it in a balanced way. But we wouldn't suggest that. We'd suggest filling your soil with a mix of topsoil, compost, and maybe some potting mix.
Yeah.
Good question. All right, before I forget, just want a quick reminder here of the home to do this little, we're gonna do this drawing for you guys, okay? Because we need to not forget that tonight. So quick reminder for the homework, plan your gardening calendar, all right? Use either of the tools that we talked about today. Drop those crops into the gardening calendar or put them into some other calendar program that you like, or either. If you're not using our calendars, look up any other crops that you want to grow that aren't recorded in them. Find out when you should be starting them so that you can put those into your calendar. Get your calendar set up. It's going to give you so much clarity when you go into your when you actually implement your garden. And let me show you to help you guys on the worksheet here. This is where on the right-hand side of the worksheet here, there's this column called when. And so what I suggest you do is when you have added lettuce to your gardening calendar, just put a little check mark there. And then, when you've added cabbage, put a little check mark there. When you've added broccoli, put a little check mark there. That way you can just at a glance see which ones have already been added to your calendar, which ones you still need to add to your calendar, which ones you may need to look up, etc. And it will just keep you kind of on track. This is in the garden planning worksheet that we're using. We just put that in there just as a little visual to help you keep on track with creating a calendar. All right. Yeah, looks like we got a couple more questions. I didn't see any questions about what we've covered here specifically with creating your planting calendar. So I'm hoping that's the good news, that it's clear to you guys and that you're all set and ready to go. Otherwise, Olivine says, I will not be able to join you tomorrow evening and I won't be able to watch the classes within 24 hours. Is there any way I can see the video after the 24 hours or get the material that is covered? Very excellent question, Olivine. All right, so I'm going to show you how you can do that because we are making them available. If you go over to the Resource Center, and let me just go over there now so I can show you while I do it here. If you go over to the Resource Center, up at the top of the page at the Resource Center here, let me just wait until my screen shares here so that you can see it. All right, so at the Resource Center, up at the top of the page here, there is this section that says Own the Workshop Recordings, Lifetime Access for just $37. So if you click that button up at the top, if you didn't purchase them when you first signed up, you can purchase the recordings to have lifetime access to them just right there. And we will make those available to you as soon as possible after the workshop is over. And that way you can have them for, I mean, yeah, literally. It's like lifetime access. As long as we can make them available to you online, they're available to you, and you could go back and review them at any time. Plus, if you purchase access to the recordings, you're going to get access to the Resource Center with all of those bonus resources, etc. as well. All right. Inside of your cucumbers, you do have a crazy cucumber. Where are you getting your seeds at? Local southern states, possibly even Walmart. Yeah. Okay, now. Let's see. Very interesting. Sharon says, we'll have questions about planning tomorrow after we try and do it. Totally understand. So we'll be on tomorrow night to help answer your questions. Monty says, will you post visuals from tonight as well? Yes. So the slides that we went over, we'll be posting those inside the Resource Center there as well. So hopefully that is helpful. Jennifer says, if we did purchase the recordings, can we download the videos? Very good question, Jennifer. I think that's doable. We could make those downloadable for you guys. Yeah, absolutely. Monty says, thank you. Okay, you all. Hey, we have come to, I mean, we're 4 minutes from 9 p.m. So I feel like that's pretty good. If there's any other questions, any last minute questions you want to throw in before we sign off this evening. Has this been helpful?
We have to do the drawing.
Oh, wait. Yeah. We got to do the drawing, right? Let me pull that up here. So we've got to do our drawing, free giveaway, end of class for the 14-day microgreens challenge. Okay, you guys? Let me check something here, actually. Let me see if I can see here who all is on right this moment. Session 2, go. Let's see if I can see who is on right now. Registration and attendees. Attended. 150. I'm just gonna see if with my program here I can see who's on at this moment so that we can do this drawing for you. All right, looks like we're good. So looks like we have thanks for bearing with me, y'all. Looks like we have about 47. Well, I'm seeing 50 here, 47. Oh, only 41 on my list here. So tell you what, here's what we're gonna do for tonight. It looks like we got 50 people on here. So what I'm gonna do is I want all of you to, what we're gonna do this a little differently. We're gonna have you enter the drawing by putting a comment in the comments area. So if you want to be part of the drawing, then type yes in the comments, okay? Type yes in the comments. And we are going to scroll through the comments here and blindly pick one of you, okay? So I'm just gonna wait for you guys to type yes in the comments. Just don't worry, I'll give you a little bit to type that in the comments. This is a perk for participating in here, for putting in that, having that participation. So just gonna give you a couple minutes, about another minute or 30 seconds here. This is in yes. Then I'm going to scroll real fast up and down with all of you guys, okay? Hey, somebody's cheating and doing too many yeses. All right, I'm scrolling up and down, and Dad, you put your finger on here, and we'll do like a 1, 2, 3, okay? So just put it somewhere in there. Boom! Michelle, you are the winner. Michelle is the winner of our Congratulations, Michelle. Fantastic. You are the winner of the microgreens challenge.
Putting in lots of yeses.
Hey, yeah, some of you guys were putting in a lot of yeses. I don't know. Congratulations, Michelle. And Michelle, I think you deserve it. You've been a big participant here. A lot of you have been big participants here. So just going to take a little screenshot here so I can make sure to remember to get that to you. All right, excellent. So you all want to say, have Ethan come up and say goodnight? All right.
He's not already.
My guess is I better not. I think that he's probably already asleep in bed. So sorry, guys. Sorry, I probably just got your hopes up and then just blew them. Okay, I'll tell you what. We'll promise to bring him on tomorrow night. We'll bring him on tomorrow night again, and so make sure that you show up on time because it's going to happen at the beginning, and we'll bring him on so you can say hi to all of you guys. All right, we've hit 9 o'clock. It's time for bed for us here, and probably for a lot of you guys too. So thanks so much for joining, and if you have any questions, shoot questions by email. Don't forget your homework of planning out your gardening calendar. Let us know. And tomorrow, we're going to be talking about actually mapping out your calendar, mapping out your garden for your specific, more in-depth into succession planting. Yeah, anything else?
Livia's wondering if she can get some microgreens.
You want to get some microgreens? Well, we don't have any microgreens for sale. We can teach you how to grow them, though. That's what we can do. All right, thank you, everyone. I hope this has been helpful for you. That's what we're here for. Look forward to seeing you all tomorrow night.
Yes.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
We'll see you then. Bye-bye.